them all what I'm made up. Strut down the hall, won't stop till I get enough.
We all scan those headlines about major global events, right? And you often think, okay, there's definitely more going on here than just this. That's certainly true for the current situation between India and Pakistan. So for this deep dive, we're really focusing in on the recent Indian airstrikes and what Pakistan's response might actually look like.
Exactly. We've been digging into the latest news reports, looking at expert analysis, trying to really understand what's happening on the ground.
Yeah.
The aim here is, to get past those initial flashes and really grasp the context, the immediate effects, and where this might be heading.
Okay, let's dive right in then. So India stated it launched missile and airstrikes, 9 sites across Pakistan and Pakistan-administered Kashmir.
That's the claim, yes. And it apparently happened in a really tight window, just 25 minutes, early Tuesday morning India time.
And their stated reason.
India says they were targeting militant positions. This was based on, quote, credible intelligence. Now, Pakistan tells a different story. They say only 6 locations were hit. And they also make claims about shooting down 5 Indian jets and a drone. India hasn't confirmed any of that, by the way.
And tragically, we're already hearing about casualties. Pakistan's reporting, 26 killed and 46 injured from the strikes and shelling across the line of control.
Yes, that's the figure from Pakistan's side. The line of control, of course, being that de facto border. And India's military is reporting casualties, too. 10 civilians killed from Pakistani shelling on their side of the Law-Say.
It's just awful. And it's important to remember the context here. This didn't happen in a vacuum.
Absolutely not. These strikes came after that recent attack on tourists in Pahalgam, which is in Indian-administered Kashmir. India has been quite firm, saying it has evidence linking Pakistan-based groups, even external actors, to that Pahalgam attack.
But Pakistan denies this.
Completely denies it. And they've asked India to actually share whatever evidence they claim to have.
So yeah, definitely not an isolated incident. When we look back, this pattern of action and reaction, it feels familiar, doesn't it? How does this latest round compare to, say, 2016 or 2019?
That's a really key question.
Yeah.
You'll remember, back in 2016, after the Uri attack, India carried out what they called surgical strikes just across the Law-Say.
Right.
Then in 2019, after Pulwama, we had the Balakot airstrikes. And Balakot was a big deal because it was the first time since, 1971, that India hit targets inside Pakistan's internationally recognized territory.
And that really ramped things up, leading to Pakistani retaliation, the aerial dogfight.
Precisely. Now, this time, analysts like Srinath Raghavan are pointing to something potentially different. The sheer scope seems broader. India seems to be targeting the infrastructure of 3 major militant groups, Lashkar-e-Taiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed, and Hizbul Mujahideen all at once.
All 3, simultaneously. That feels like a major escalation in itself. Going beyond just Kashmir, striking deeper inside Pakistan proper, that signals a potential change in how India sees the risks, maybe.
I think that's a fair assessment. India's named some specific locations, too. A couple of camps in Sialkot, maybe 6 to 18 kilometers from the border, but also a Jaish-e-Mohammed headquarters way down in Bahalpur, like 100 kilometers inside Pakistan, and a Lashkar camp in Muzaffarabad, closer to the Lawrence.
Though Pakistan maintains there are no terror camps at these spots.
Correct. That's their consistent position.
And Raghavan really highlights this geographical spread, doesn't he? Hitting targets beyond just Pakistan-administered Kashmir into Pakistan's Punjab province across the actual international border. That really hammers home the point that multiple groups are in the crosshairs now. Moving past the Law-Say into Punjab, that feels like a significant step.
It does. And Ajay Bisaria, who used to be India's high commissioner to Pakistan, he's called this a kind of Balakot plus response. His take is that it's about reestablishing deterrence, hitting known hubs. But interestingly, he also feels there's a strong de-escalation message alongside it.
How so?
By emphasizing the precision, perhaps, making it harder for Pakistan to deny the strikes happened or what was hit.
This idea of reestablishing deterrence, it keeps coming up. Professor Raghavan even compared it to Israel's approach, those periodic strikes.
Yeah, the thinking seems to be you demonstrate you're willing and able to hit back hard, consistently, to make the cost of future attacks too high.
But there's a flip side to that, isn't there? A huge risk.
There absolutely is. If the calculation is just strike back to deter, you could actually sort of incentivize Pakistan to hit back even harder. That's where things could really spiral.
Which leads us straight to the really worrying part, the potential for this to blow up into something bigger. What are the experts saying about the chances of more escalation?
Well, the general feeling, the consensus really, seems to be that some kind of Pakistani response is likely. Some are even calling it inevitable.
Inevitable. Wow.
Ajay Saria stresses that crisis diplomacy is going to be absolutely vital now, especially in managing whatever happens next after potential Pakistani response. There'll likely be advice for Pakistan to show restraint, but the real diplomatic heavy lifting might come after they react.
And it's not just Indian analysts expecting this. Experts in Pakistan, like Ajaz Hussain, they actually saw strikes like these coming, given the tensions. And he thinks Pakistani retaliatory strikes, maybe surgical strikes of their own, are probably on the cards soon.
Yeah, and Dr. Hussain voiced a serious concern there, that if both sides start trading surgical strikes, it could, accidentally tip over into a limited conventional war.
That's a chilling thought.
It is. Christopher Clary over the University at Albany, he also thinks retaliation from Pakistan is highly likely. He points to the scale of India's strikes, the damage people are seeing, the casualties reported, and he mentions the Pakistan military's kind of commitment to what they call quid pro quo plus.
Quid pro quo plus, so an eye for an eye and then some.
That seems to be the implication, yeah. A potentially stronger reaction than just mirroring India's action.
Does Clary offer any ideas on what that might look like?
He speculates a bit. Maybe Pakistan limits its response to hitting Indian military targets, trying to avoid civilian areas. There's sort of a hope, maybe a cautious one, that after one round of back and forth, maybe some more firing across the Lassia, things could de-escalate.
That feels like the best case scenario right now.
It probably is. But Clary is very clear about the risks. He actually said this could be the most dangerous crisis between them since way back in 2002. Even more dangerous, potentially, than 2016 and 2019.
That really puts it in perspective. Okay, so we're talking about this expected Pakistani retaliation, but what's the mood like inside Pakistan? How might public feeling play into their government's or military's decisions?
Well, that's interesting. Analysts based in Pakistan, like Umar Farouk, are noticing something different this time compared to 2016 or 2019.
Yeah.
He says there's maybe less of that intense war hysteria in the general public.
Why is that?
He suggests a couple of reasons. The political situation is quite fractured right now. And also, Imran Khan's imprisonment has generated quite a bit of anti-military feeling in certain parts of society, which wasn't there in the same way before.
So the public reaction might be a bit more mixed this time around.
Possibly. But Farouk also makes the point that, look, if public opinion really swings in central Punjab, that's a region with historically pretty strong anti-India feelings, then the pressure on the military to act could really mount. And he even suggests, kind of paradoxically, that a conflict situation could end up boosting the military standing in that specific context.
Complex dynamics.
Very. And Dr. Hussain sort of builds on that. He thinks this standoff actually gives the Pakistani military a chance to win back some support, especially maybe from urban middle-class folks who've been critical of their perceived role in politics. He also notes how the military's active defense posture is getting a lot of play in the media right now. Things like those unverified claims about shooting down Indian jets, which all helps to bolster their image domestically.
Right. So it's this tangled web of internal politics, public sentiment, and military calculations shaping Pakistan's potential response.
If we just step back for a second, what immediate actions did we see from both sides right after that initial Pahalgam attack, even before these big airstrikes?
Yeah, in the immediate aftermath, India moved quite quickly. They closed the main border crossing at Wagah Atari. They suspended a water-sharing treaty, expelled some diplomats, stopped most visas for Pakistanis. There were also reports of small arms fire being exchanged, and India closed its airspace. Pakistan had already done that. Then Pakistan followed up by suspending a key peace treaty from 1972 and taking its own measures.
It sounds very much like the playbook after Pulwama in 2019. I remember India revoking Pakistan's trade status, slapping on tariffs, halting trade links.
Exactly the same pattern. And we all remember how 2019 unfolded, right? The Balakat strikes, then Pakistan hitting back, capturing the Indian pilot.
And then eventually things calmed down through diplomacy. Pakistan releasing the pilot was a big step. It was seen as a key goodwill gesture. Ajay Bisaria looked back at that time and said India was, quote, willing to give old-fashioned diplomacy another chance then. He felt both countries managed to spin a narrative of victory for their home crowds, which probably helped pave the way for de-escalation.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. The key things seem to be India launched these expanded strikes, hitting deeper, targeting more groups.
Yes, a definite escalation in scope and geography compared to recent events.
And the overwhelming expert view is that some form of Pakistani retaliation is, well, highly probable, if not inevitable.
That seems to be the consensus, yes, which puts both countries and the region in a really precarious spot. The risk of things escalating further feels quite high.
And as we've heard, what happens after Pakistan potentially responds, the role of diplomacy at that critical juncture will be absolutely crucial to stop this spiraling out of control.
Couldn't agree more. It's a moment that really calls for cool heads and careful communication. The next few days, maybe weeks, are going to be incredibly important.
So, listening to all this, thinking about the history we've touched on, the current political climate in both India and Pakistan, here's something for you to chew on. What factors, what specific things do you think will ultimately push this crisis towards more conflict or pull it back towards de-escalation? Consider all those different viewpoints, the pressures, the calculations we've talked about in this deep dive. It's incredibly complex, no easy answers for sure, but understanding these moving parts feels more critical than ever right now.
Sound the alarm. I'm coming up. We'll have a ball. I'm sweet like a buttercup. You're a Barbie doll. Show them all what I'm made of. Strut down the hall. Won't stop till